Hey,
Patricia, I want to ask you a question. What's one recovery truth that you've completely changed your mind about over the years?
I've had a pretty dramatic change of mind with my approach. I came from a 12-step background that I still is foundational for me, that really connected me with understanding what a higher power was for me, because I hadn't had any connection before. And so from the 12-step background, which was, I, and being a sponsor, for all those years. I mean, you had to really toe. I came from kind of a strict 12-step background. There's various ones, but I came from a strict approach to it. And it's like, I wouldn't work with you unless you were abstinent. And you just weren't ready. You just hadn't surrendered. And I want to apologize right now to anybody I met along the way while I was sponsoring in that way, because I've had a complete turnaround. I call that, and you can recover that way from the top down, getting abstinent and then getting into the different layers that you have to get through to understand all the things that are going around that are really your issues around why you go to food. I'm not saying that that is not valid, but the longer I got in it and the longer I started to see people who were abstinent until they weren't, and how they longed for the hope to continue in some way, and yet how discouraged they were. I realized, how about we come from connecting to our true self and getting some understanding of what will empower us, and then gain the abstinent. So I call that bottom up recovery. So get abstinent and learn all your lessons, top down recovery. I'm just making that up, but it's not an official name. But right now, I really, I've learned that nothing's, maybe you're just being given a need for some attention, that something's off and you need to work on what are the things that are off so you can get to the point where you can flow into um, abstinence again and deepen that way. So that's been a dramatic shift for me to go from the top down learning and the bottom up. I'm not saying which is right, which is wrong. They're both equally, to me, great, but it wasn't how I started out. Now,
It's so interesting. I don't come from a 12-step background. I did do some Al-Anon, but not in relation to my own food dysfunction. But it is really interesting to me for you to talk about that because I believe very strongly that grace is a really important part of this, but I didn't start that way. I was very hard on myself. That lacerating inner critic was so strong for me, and I felt that it was vital to my survival, that if I wasn't beating myself up, and there's an extension of what you're talking about here, is that if I wasn't beating myself up, I would fail, I would drop, I would stop doing what I was doing. I would not have I couldn't imagine under the underpinnings of my life if I wasn't beating myself up, because that was the only way that I was keeping abstinent. It's ironic as hell, because the science that I've learned since, and that's the approach that I went to, is the science around the importance of ironic rebound and the reason that we can't beat ourselves up if we want to maintain and sustain. And I love going into that. And that's one of my favorite topics to talk about. You can Google ironic rebound to get an idea about what I'm saying. But in essence, one of the biggest rules I felt was vital was that instead of saying, I don't eat flour and sugar, you say, I eat nutritionally delicious vegetables and fruit. I eat healthy. I eat whole foods. rather than what you don't do. It's amazing how much that releases. I just feel the weight coming off my shoulders. I feel the panic receding from my chest. It was a game changer for me when I started looking at it that way. And when I shared it with my clients, this was something that really shifted. And it's not easy because I come from a very hardworking work ethic. My grandfather, pounded it into all of us. And I felt it very strongly that in order to make him proud, I needed to work hard. The issue is that it's way more complicated than that. And so reframing has been massive for me. Shifting the perspective and looking at things from a different view and a different point of view.
Mhm.
Really important. And that's been pivotal. That's been pivotal.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in learning more about what Patricia and I are talking about, if this sounds interesting, but you're confused or you're not quite sure, please attend our masterclasses starting May 10th. They're going every Saturday morning for 3 weeks. And then we start a course called The Art of Recovery, Expanding Your Journey, the spring 2025 edition.
That has become such a lovely community and such a lovely experience to go through it with these beautiful ways of looking at things and discovering ourselves. And
Great.
you know,
Absolutely. Thank you, Patricia.
my pleasure.